Before we begin, if you value serious, in-depth history that connects the past to real-world survival lessons, subscribe to the Survival Record. This channel exists for people who want more than summaries. They want understanding. When people think about World War II food shortages, they usually picture ration cards, victory gardens, and propaganda encouraging citizens to do their part. What often gets missed is that wartime agriculture was not just about producing more food. It was about producing the right food under conditions of fertilizer shortages, labor loss, fuel rationing, and disrupted trade networks. Farmers across Europe, Britain, and parts of North America quietly revived crops that had already fallen out of fashion because they were resilient, calorie-dense, storable, and adaptable to poor soil. Many of these vegetables were not glamorous, and after the war they were quickly abandoned in favor of higher-yield monocultures and imported produce. That decision made sense economically, but it came with long-term costs to resilience. Today, as supply chains show how fragile they really are, these forgotten crops deserve a second look. Wartime food security relied on strategies that many of us have, well, almost forgotten today. During times of conflict, people had to make do with what was available, often turning to creative solutions to ensure everyone had enough to eat. These approaches, born of necessity, shaped not only what people grew, but also how they thought about resilience and self-sufficiency. What wartime farmers understood about food security that we've largely forgotten. By the late 1930s, European agriculture was already specialized and dependent on international trade. When war severed those connections, farmers were forced to prioritize crops that could survive neglect, resist pests, and provide reliable calories without chemical inputs. Governments issued planting guidance, but much of the real adaptation happened at the local level. Older farmers remembered pre-industrial crops their parents had grown, and, those memories became survival strategies. These vegetables weren't chosen for taste or appearance. They were chosen because they kept people alive. Rutabagas, for example, played a crucial role during hard times. Embracing a variety of crops rather than relying on just one helped communities endure unpredictable seasons and, honestly, made survival just a bit more likely. Rutabagas became, a warning and a lesson in nutritional monotony. Rutabagas, or Swedes, are often remembered negatively because of Germany's so-called turnip winter of 1916 to 1917. But during World War II, they quietly returned across Europe. They grow well in cold climates, tolerate poor soil, and can actually be stored for months. Wartime planners valued them because they could replace both potatoes and animal feed in extreme shortages. The lesson rutabagas teach is not that a single crop can save a population, but that reliance on one staple, even a hardy one, creates its own vulnerability. Diversity mattered then, and, well, it matters now. Mangelwurzel, was a crop valued for its sheer reliability. In times when food security was uncertain, people turned to crops that could be counted on, even under the harshest conditions. The dependable calories provided by mangelwurzel made it an unsung hero, especially when other options simply failed. Mangelwurzel survived neglect better than almost any modern crop. Originally bred as animal fodder, mangelwurzel became a human food of last resort during wartime shortages. Its massive roots could reach over 10 pounds, growing in compacted or exhausted soil with minimal fertilizer. British farmers kept it alive because it produced calories where other crops failed. Nutritionally, it was never ideal, but it was dependable. That reliability is why it mattered. So, Let's talk about Jerusalem artichokes and parsnips for a moment. These humble roots often get overlooked, but, their story is actually quite fascinating. Jerusalem artichokes thrived where potatoes failed. And despite the name, Jerusalem artichokes are a sunflower relative, not an artichoke at all. During the Second World War, they became a quiet fallback crop across occupied Europe. They resist frost, regenerate from small fragments left in the soil, and require very little maintenance. Unlike potatoes, they're less susceptible to blight and really can be harvested gradually through the winter. Parsnips quietly filled the calorie gap left by rationing. Parsnips had been declining in popularity before the war, but rationing brought them back into British and Northern European kitchens. Now let's talk about a few other root vegetables that honestly don't get much attention these days. Celeriac, salsify and scorzonera. These humble roots, though, were once valued for their ability to grow well in tough conditions and to provide essential nutrients during lean times. People found creative ways to use them in soups, stews, and even as substitutes for more familiar vegetables. Their versatility and resilience made them, quite important during periods of scarcity. Celeriac proved that storage mattered as much as yield. Celeriac, or celery root, looks unremarkable, but stores exceptionally well in cellars without refrigeration. Salsify and scorzonera fed people who knew how to wait. Often called oyster plants, salsify and scorzonera were wartime holdovers from older agricultural traditions. They grow slowly, require patience, and offer modest yields, but they thrive in marginal soils and overwinter well. Farmers kept them because they spread risk. When faster-growing crops failed, these were still there. Kale, leaf beets, field peas and turnips were, the backbone of many wartime diets. These crops were chosen for their resilience and, honestly, their ability to provide nutrition when other options were scarce. People relied on them season after season because they could count on these humble plants to survive tough conditions and keep families fed. Kale and leaf beets endured because they refused to die. While not completely forgotten, kale and leaf beets played a more serious role during World War II than their modern reputation suggests. They were famine greens, hardy, cold-resistant, and capable of repeated harvests. Field peas returned because, protein shortages changed priorities. Vegetables were not only about calories anymore. Protein shortages forced governments to rethink crop planning. Field peas, often dismissed as animal feed, became critical for both human consumption and soil restoration through nitrogen fixation. Turnips earned redemption through adaptability, not popularity. Turnips never fully disappeared, but wartime necessity stripped away any illusions about comfort food. These crops reveal how wartime agriculture shaped post-war vulnerabilities. After the Second World War, industrial farming deliberately moved away from many of these vegetables. The decision improved efficiency, yields, and profit, but honestly, it also reduced diversity. Wartime farmers accepted lower yields in exchange for certainty. Modern systems prioritize output at the cost of resilience. When disruptions occur, we relearn old lessons the hard way. Remembering these vegetables is not about nostalgia or romanticizing hardship. It is about understanding how people adapted when systems failed and choices narrowed. These crops fed civilians, prisoners, refugees, and soldiers not because they were ideal, but simply because they worked. In an era of fragile supply chains and climate uncertainty, the knowledge embedded in wartime agriculture still matters. If you value thoughtful, historically grounded analysis like this, subscribe to the Survival Record and share this video with others who care about understanding the past, not just remembering it.